Company, order, arms. At ease, you may be seated.
On behalf of the Dale Woods family, Colerain Police Department, fire, and the Colerain community, we want to thank you for being here today and also for your expressions of love and support that have been non-ending and overwhelming. Words cannot express the appreciation. This is the way it's supposed to be. Thank you.
What a friend we have in Jesus. All our sins and griefs to bear. What a privilege to carry everything to God in prayer. Oh, what peace we often forfeit. What needless pain we bear, all because we do not carry everything to God in prayer. Have we trials and temptations? Is there trouble anywhere? We should never be discouraged. Take it to the Lord in prayer. Can we find a friend so faithful who will all our sorrows share? Jesus knows our every weakness. Take it to the Lord in prayer. Are we weak and heavy laden, cumbered with a load of care? Precious Savior, still our refuge. Take it to the Lord in prayer. Do thy friends despise, forsake thee? Take it to the Lord in prayer. In his arms he'll take and shield thee. Thou wilt find a solace there.
Dale James Woods, born on June the 8th, 1972, passed from this world on January 7th of this year. doing his duty. He is the father of Trinity, Haley, and Colin Woods, survived by his mother, Ann Woods, with Rex, girlfriend Becky Pennington Saylor, and sister Dory Marcotte, two nieces, Jessica and Caitlin. Leaves behind many friends, a very loving community, a close police department, and as we see here, other brothers in blue. Dale was the owner of an auto detailing shop called Details by Dale. I think most departments wish they had a detailer. Dale loved playing the drums, was a member of the Cincinnati Tradition and limited additional drum and bugle corps. He also played the drums with the John Wesley United Methodist Church and with the drum line at Colerain Middle and Colerain High Schools. He enjoyed bodybuilding, and to say that Dale just enjoyed golf is an understatement. He was a member of the Clovernook Country Club, and the community there viewed him as a, quote, professional golfer. You've heard about Dale the person. But to serve and protect, the motto was more than a motto to him. Let me count the ways in which he served. He served as a firefighter with Colerain, fire investigator with North College Hill. He was a police officer with North College Hill, worked with the dispatch, police officer with Lincoln Heights, worked with animal control, firearms instructor, and as a Colerain police officer, he was part of the Honor Guard, Bike Patrol, Quick Response Team, Missing Person Team, SWAT Team, and a detective. His serving was recognized as he did well. In 2002, he received a letter of commendation from the North College Hill on auto theft investigation. 2003, he got a letter of commendation from the Missing Persons from Florida. 2003, a Medal of Valor for a North College Hill structure fire. 2004, Medal of Valor, Colerain Township in a Kmart shooting. 2004, Ohio Fire Marshal gave him the Ohio Fire Services Citizens Award. 2009, the FOP gave him an appreciation award. 2009, he got a Chief Commendation for OVI enforcement. 2010, Chief Commendation for a shooting on Windsong Street. 2013, letter of commendation for a homicide investigation in Indiana. Last year, it was on the news, you may remember, he got a life-saving award for a fire involving leading out and taking care of a blind woman. But that's not all, because not only in his life did he receive awards, but in 2019, even in his death, he has the life-saving award for organ donation. I think it is appropriate that we recognize not only who he was, but that he was a man of service. To protect and to serve was something that he took serious.
Tears to dim the eye, all is peace. shall see, and I look upon his face, the one who saved me by his grace. When he takes me by the hand and leads me through the promised land, what a day, glorious day that will be, that will be.
Good morning. On behalf of the men and women of the Corrigan Police Department, I want to welcome you and thank you for attending the services today and for attending the services over the weekend and giving your prayers and support to the family. They have been heard and they have been felt. And so thank you very much for that. Earlier in the week, I was asked by a reporter to describe the kind of police officer that Dale Woods was. And I thought about it for a moment and I answered, I'd rather tell you the kind of man he was because that's really all that matters. And as I collected my thoughts for today, I found myself drawn to the items in his personnel report, where he worked and how long he was there and things of that nature that are very important, but they still don't go to the answer to what kind of man he was. When we hire police officers, we often say, bring me a good person, I can turn him into a cop. And generally speaking, that's the case. But every once in a while, if you're lucky, if you're very, very lucky, you run into a natural cop. And the law enforcement leaders in this room are shaking their head because they know what I'm talking about. You run into somebody who's born with common sense, born knowing how to talk to people with respect and to handle stressful situations. And these are the ones that run through fire, run into the gunfire, and run through brick walls for people they've never met before. And that was Dale Woods. Dale was a cop's cop. And for those in the building that may not know what that term means, it tells the rest of us as police officers basically everything we need to know. It tells us that when we make that traffic stop at 2 a.m, that he'll be on the other side of that car looking for the gun. And when we go to that domestic, he'll be standing right next to us. It's everything we need to know. But I caution our communities, the caustic environment that we're asking these young men and women to police in is causing us to lose our supply of not only police officers, but of those rare natural police officers. And that hurts all of us. I also told the reporter I had the privilege of knowing Dale for 32 years. In the first 3 years of our lives, we ran in different circles and weren't what I would consider friends, and he said maybe 10 or 15 words to me. But then I look back, and the remaining 29, I'm not sure he said much more than that. But you never doubted its friendship. He had a remarkable ability for gaining friendships and earning respect without having to say very much. Trinity, Haley, and Colin, I'm going to tell you something about your dad you might not know, and it's not a bad story, so you can relax. But your dad's a hero. And being a hero doesn't require that you die in a fiery explosion or that you have some innate skill for carrying a football or a tune, but it does require you be willing to give everything, including your life, for a purpose greater than yourself. And if that doesn't describe your dad, I don't know what does. What happened to your dad Friday was tragic. What happened was unfair. And what happened will alter your lives forever. And there isn't a return to the old normal. But there'll be a new normal. There'll be a new feeling of pride when you hear your father's name. And that's going to come from the speeches and the stories you've been told over the last week and that we'll continue to hear. And when you look around you at this awesome display of respect for what your father stood for. And it isn't because you didn't respect him before, but this is going to be a bit different. And those good feelings, they're going to come back. They'll come back when you're with your family and you'll swear you hear your dad laugh in the background somewhere. Or you look in the mirror or in the face of your brothers and sisters and you'll swear you see his face. And I promise you that when you have children, his voice will come booming out of your mouth one day and you'll not know where that came from. Your dad loved you and was incredibly proud of you. And he left you with a remarkable legacy. And he's also left you with thousands of new aunts and uncles. And we love Dale. And I challenge every man and woman in uniform in this room to say those words to the people who mean something to you before it's too late. Because I promise you, Every one of Dale's friends wish we had 5 more minutes to say that to him. Our jobs are way too hard to wait till a tragedy occurs to tell each other how we feel about one another. If any positives came from this last week, it's that I've started to see police officers hugging one another and actually saying those things to each other. So back to the original question, what kind of man was Dale Woods? Dale was the kind of man who would break a window in a car to save a baby that was in a sweltering car and was going to lose its life, never expecting to hear a thank you. But ironically, getting the message of thank you from that child's father 1 hour before he was struck Friday. He's the kind of police officer who, as a new cop all by himself, would chase a murder suspect from a homicide scene to the point where the suspect had no other choice but to take his own life. He's the kind of officer and the kind of man who would run into a burning building to save a blind resident who thought her chances of escape had gone. He's also the kind of man who would place a brand new police officer in his car and make them listen to the most god-awful music ever created as part of his training program. He's also the kind of man, as his very last act on this earth, gave of himself, every part of himself, so others could live through organ donation. And he's the kind of man who could cram people in the Cintas Arena on a cold January Monday just because of who he was and what he stood for. Dale, I love you and I'm going to miss you. You made me a better person for knowing you, and you made our police department a better police department for being part of us. And I know you made Colerain Township a safer community because you stood the watch. You can rest easy, my friend. Your brothers and sisters have your watch.
Nice one. It was very nice, Chief Jenny. Thank you for the chance to speak today. I'm humbled to have the opportunity to address Dale's family and friends, his fellow officers, our township co-workers, and our Colerain Township neighbors, whether you are here or watching from home. We genuinely appreciate you taking time today to remember Dale and his family. To Dale's family, my wife Jean, our 2 adult children, Kara and Thomas, my mother, my brothers, my sister, their spouses, and my nieces and nephews, all of whom live in Colerain Township, we offer our condolences. Thank you for Dale's lifetime of service. To Colin, Trinity, and Haley, I'm so sorry about the loss of your dad. I do have the honor today to introduce you to some of your new family members and friends, starting right now, today. Right over there, about 12 rows from the back, is your new sister. She is a police officer in Louisville, Kentucky. When you visit her, she will take you over to Churchill so you can see the horses. The officer over there from Illinois, he is your new cousin. You are meeting him for the first time today. Later in life, he will show you around Chicago. And the officer from Michigan, well, he will be the uncle you call when you take a trip some summer day to see the blue waters up north. My point is, approach any of the officers that are here today, walk into any police department next week, next year, or 10 years from now, in any town USA, tell them who you are, and you will have instant family. Everyone here wants to help you. Please give them a chance to do that someday. Your new home phone number in Colerain Township is 321-COPS. It rings right up on Springdale Road. Ask for Uncle Mark when you need some advice. He knows just enough to be dangerous. When you call there, Glenna, Emily or Shannon, Jenna or Heather will always have a kind word. Greg will always cheer you up, and Uncle Raj will always be there to listen. And when you call your new home on Springdale Road, it's usually Ed who answers the phone, and he's always good for a sandwich, if you know what that is. And Ed's going to need you to call him because because he's going to need that, so please call him. May God hold your family in the palm of his hand. We can do all these things through Christ who strengthens us. Thank you.
Thank you, Dan. My name is Raj Gopal. I'm a Coleraine Township trustee and a former deputy sheriff. Today is the saddest day for the Coleraine Township and the Coleraine police officers, firefighters, and the residents of the Coleraine Township, the whole country. We lost our own fellow officer. On behalf of Coleraine Township and the residents, I thank all the police officers, firefighters, and law enforcement agencies to come here to bid farewell to our fallen officer, Dale Woods. I also thank our area law enforcement agencies and firefighters to help our own Coleraine police officers and firefighters while they were grieving and paying visit to our officer Dale Woods when he was in the hospital. Officer Dale's children, Haley, Trinity, and Colin, you are not all alone. While you are all in sorrow and sadness for loss of our daddy, the residents of Coleraine Township and all our country share your sorrow and sadness. Your dad is a hero, and our hero, and our country hero. Dale's mom, Trish, and his girlfriend, Becky, mom, and stepfather, Rex. You gave the son to serve our township and our country. During those years, he sacrificed his life, sharing and protecting lives of people. Dale's mom, Dale may have lived a short life, but all the life he lived for others, sacrificing. At the end, also he sacrificed. For this, forever, we all will be thankful to you. Thank you.
Amazing grace, how sweet the sound that saved a wretch
Hi, my name is Greg Insko, Coleraine Township trustee. I want to remind everyone, it's okay to be sad. It's okay to cry. We've all gotten pretty good at that over the last week. But it's also okay to be happy. And I'm going to keep it lighthearted because it's okay to smile and laugh too. Like many of you, I keep asking myself, what would Dale want? I think he'd want us to look after his family, his girlfriend, his brothers and sisters in the police and fire departments. And I think he'd especially want us to look after his kids. When I met them all at the hospital, his son was wearing a hoodie that was halfway zipped down. And I said, "What's at the top of your shirt?" And unfortunately, he proudly opened his shirt and said, "I'm a Steelers fan." My reaction wasn't laughter at all. It was actually more like silence. We should all want to support his son as best we can in honor of his father. So we can all be Bengals fans, but if you'd like to join me in supporting his son, well, go Steelers. We love you, buddy.
These last days have been difficult ones. Haley, Trinity, Colin, I'm so sorry. Your dad loved you, and I can't even begin to understand the emotions that you guys have been feeling. I picture, as I bet every dad in here pictures, my kids sitting in your chairs, and it's almost too much to bear. I knew your dad to be a good man. I knew your dad to be a good man who surrounded himself with good men and women. I knew your dad to be a public servant in a community that cares. I believe that though he is gone, and there is nothing that anyone in this room can do to bring him back, that his essence, his memory, will live on so long as we tell his story. There are many people in this room who know Dale's story better than I do, and I implore you, tell it. Tell it often. Tell the story about that rainy night in January when Dale did what police officers do. When Dale did what firefighters and EMTs do. When Dale did what heroes do every day. When Dale did his job. He helped somebody who needed help. He paid the ultimate price. Friends, I believe in the altruism of public service, but this is not fair. And this hurts. And these last days have been difficult ones. And you shouldn't die for doing your job, even if your job is to be a hero. But I also believe that so long as the work that you have done and the person that you are is still impacting people's lives, so long as your story continues to be told, then you have left a legacy. A legacy you can be proud of. I'm proud of Dale. I'm proud of his legacy. Let's make Dale's legacy our lives.
Jeff mentioned the stories that go with a life and the legacy. I think sometimes there ought to be a story time associated with funerals, because there's plenty of stories that can be told. I have no doubt that if I was to ask all these guys from Coleraine Do you have a story? I don't think there would be anybody that would not be able to share. We call them Dale stories. I was honored as chaplain to have talked to Dale numerous times, and this for some of you, and you might have that hard to believe because Dale didn't talk. But when the phone rang and I looked and I saw the name, and he was calling me about something personal, I knew that this guy that never talked to me liked me. And I considered it a privilege to have been able to talk to him on a couple occasions about things in his life. In Psalm 90, we find a psalm that was written by a guy named Moses. You may have heard of him. He talks about life. And he's considering much what we are considering here today as family and friends and loved ones. He says this in verse 9. Moses said in Psalm 90, he said, "We spend our lives, our years as a tale that is told." See, there's a story of Dale's life, and we've shared with you a few things, but we have not nearly hit the tip of the iceberg. See, daily stories are what gives life color. We live our lives in the day-to-day, the conversations as we work together, as we pass, as we laugh, our daily walk with our friends, with our family, and our relationships, and what we believe on. Someday, for all of us, our life story will be told by others. In fact, all of us that are here today, we are writing our life story right now. Moses, realizing that, has a request for God. I think it's a good request. He says, "God, teach me to number my days, that I may apply my heart to wisdom." I think it's a great ask. The idea presented by Moses is simple. We need to stop and evaluate our days, and we need to ask God to help us live each day wisely. Dale decided early in life that he was going to serve. If you'll go back and you'll review that list of occupations, Dale never got a factory job. He only got jobs in which he was serving other people. That's all he ever chose. Jobs of service. I was told by family that he decided when he was a kid, if you ask him what is he going to be when he grows up, he was going to say a fireman and a policeman. Now, some of you would say, well, he needs to be one or the other. But he became both. He became both. Dale decided to spend some personal time pursuing I don't know if you call it a hobby or what. I guess he enjoyed it. To me, it's just frustrating, but he played golf. And I was told by many that he was a different person when he got on the golf course. Talking to his mother, she told me that as a boy, he had a long stick at the end of his hand, and it was a fishing pole. And then when he got older, he exchanged that stick for a golf stick. Continued to play. I would say those aren't bad decisions. But there's a couple of things that we need to hear whenever we say, God, help us to live wisely. I want my heart to be given the wisdom. I want to live wisely. Wise living means a couple things. Number one, it means knowing the value of relationship. The best part of your life is not how big your TV is. the best part of your life are the relationships that you have. People are the most important and most valuable commodity that you can surround yourself with. Good relationships add value to life. They also make it easier to go through life. And as a preacher of the word, I'm telling you today that the main relationship that you need is a relationship with God. It's the relationship that's not only for the now, but it's for the forever. It's the relationship that will walk you through life. People are people. And in this stadium, we have people that are always dealing with people, sometimes in their worst. And there's a blanket of negativity that can overflow that. And may I say to you, men and ladies that are out as police officers, don't let this world make you cynical. Don't let it ruin your relationships. We have too much of that already. See, relationships take work. Relationships are to be valued. And a relationship with God can be had because God became man so that you might have a relationship with him. And then after that, he died for the very reason that we're talking about, so that you can know what a personal relationship is. It doesn't come from being good. It doesn't come from being religious. It's not a religion. It's a relationship. It's simple to accept because what God offers you is a gift. It's free. And all you have to do is accept it with all your heart, recognize who you are, and make that your number one relationship. You must embrace this, not as mental facts, but as a reality that goes deep to the heart. I think wise living also means knowing the value of today. See, all I can live is from this day forward. I have breath in my lungs and blood flowing through my body, and so do you. So God has given you today. You all are here today. I don't know about tomorrow, but you have today. So I want to number this day, as Moses said, and I want to apply my heart to wisdom. As it's already been said by the chief, maybe I need to express my love and care for someone today because I have today. Maybe that hug or that appreciation or maybe making that apology is what I need to do today because I have today. So I've learning the value of today. All of us, including myself, have days that we're not proud of. And that's true of all of us, isn't it? All of us have days where we can drop our heads in shame, and I have way too many of those. Days where I didn't do so well. But I can do is live from this day forward. And today, God help me to live wisely. The last point, God help me not only to live wisely, knowing the value of relationships, knowing the value of today, but live wisely, knowing that faith needs to be a part. It's at times like this, listen, Coleraine, it's times like this we lean on our faith. It's the same time you say, well, my faith is being tested. Yes, it is. Your faith in God will get you through, but I hope you have faith in God and the gift of eternity that he offers. But I hope you also have faith in what we're doing. May I confirm to you today that what you are doing, have faith. You're doing the right thing. Police work, no matter how it may be presented in this society today, and if you have been watching the news, it's been a rough month already for law enforcement around this country. But hear me. You have to have the faith every day that you get up and you put on your uniform that you are doing what is right and you are doing what is needed. May we confirm that today. May that faith sustain you through dark times. I believe Dale got up every day knowing full well that what he was doing today was not only the thing that he wanted to do, but he had faith in knowing he was doing the right thing. Moses ends this psalm by asking something else of God. He said, God, let the beauty of the Lord my God be upon me, and God, establish thou the work of our hands. Yes, the work of our hands, establish thou it. I think it's a great request too. We want God to make the work of our hands amount to something. I want God to establish what I have done in this life to have an impact, listen to me, beyond my life. That's what we want for Dale, isn't it? The story of Dale shouldn't be over, as it was said. And that's a good request. God, may I live my life in such a way that even when I'm gone, the ripple effect of my presence may be felt. I hope, I really do, that when I die, my bad days will be forgotten, and the good things, the right things that I have done is what will be my heritage. As people tell the story of my life, as that tale which is told, as Moses said, may God establish what I have done right, what I have done well, beyond my years today. And today, as I close, we need to make a promise to Dale Woods, especially those that worked with him, you guys on the floor that know him well, that we will tell the story of Dale, and that his story will continue on, even though he's not here. I say this, and I mean this with all my heart. Whenever something comes up, say it out loud. Hey guys, you know what Dale would say. You know what Dale would do. And it is my hope that the memory of Dale will eventually, maybe not now, but eventually, bring a smile to your face more than a tear to your eye. One of these days, one of the guys is going to look over and say, what are you grinning about? And you can simply say, I'm having a memory about Dale. May it bring a smile to your face. Jesus said in Matthew 5:9, most of you know this, blessed are the peacemakers, for they shall be called the children of God. And today I echo Jesus' words. To all those today that put your life on the line, to all of you that get put on the public eye and people whip out their phones to photograph you, find fault in what you do. You that run towards the trouble when everyone runs away, I echo Jesus' words. Bless you. God bless you. May the story of your life be established past the years of your service. May God bless you. Let's bow our heads and we'll end with a word of prayer. Our Heavenly Father, we have shared our love and our thoughts for Dale. We are thankful that he's been in our community. Colerain is a blessed community because of him. The way that he served, the way that he policed, the way he dealt with people. Or he will be missed. There's a hole. There won't be another Dale, but we're glad we had him. Thank you for giving him to us. And may his example, his mentoring, and his presence be felt. And may we often speak of Dale and his impact. And may the story of his life be that tale that is told in the years to come. I pray for his family, his children especially, those that were around him and rubbed shoulders with him, worked with him, loved with him, and Becky. Lord, you'll help them in the next days ahead. And may their face eventually smile when they have a memory We pray this in your Son's name. Amen.
On behalf of the Woods family and the Corning Township family, thank you. Thank you for the tremendous outpouring of love and support you have offered us this past week. It is much appreciated and has truly helped us all get through this difficult time. Thank you for your presence today to honor and celebrate the service and life of Officer Dale Woods. If you're unable to attend, thank you for however else you have offered your love and support. Words cannot begin to express our gratitude. I speak on behalf of the entire police department and the Corning Township family when I say it has truly been an honor and a privilege to serve alongside one of the finest officers to ever wear the uniform of the Corning Police Department. Truly a cop's cop. As we conclude the public portion of the ceremony, I'd like to remind you that the public safety community is invited to accompany Officer Woods' family in procession to Spring Grove Cemetery for a ceremony in the Rose Garden. No private or unmarked vehicles will be permitted in the procession. We have arranged bus transportation for you to that ceremony. Those buses are located outside the building and are staged waiting for you. Upon the conclusion of the service, please make your way expeditiously to those buses. They will depart 20 minutes after the conclusion of the service. After the ceremony at Spring Grove, they will return you back to Centos to your cars. Thank you.
All rise!
About face.
Company, raise head, out!
Mike Dardis and Cherie Palello back with Gene Ferrara, who was with law enforcement for 50 years. And he pointed out, just as you were watching the end of that, there at the Cintas Center, you saw that long, thin blue line in the Cintas Center. A very nice touch. Just a touching tribute and a wonderful ceremony. Went on for more than an hour. We heard from all kinds of speakers. Gene, you've seen many of these. What jumped out to you the most as you watched things transpire? And there's the chief, of course, of the Cincinnati Police Department.
Well, it's common to me, but I'm not sure how many people, without this and being prompted to it, would recognize the number of uniforms that were out in that audience. The police agencies who sent representatives from far away. I mean, they're just not the Colerain Township Police Department. Obviously, Cincinnati was there. I saw some people there.
There's the blue line again.
The blue line. The bagpiper is a Marymount police officer, Steve Watt. Great. He does a great job of the ceremony with the bagpipes. So that's the thing that strikes, I think, is that camaraderie, that commonality between officers from all kinds of different departments and even different geographic areas.
Not only the police officers, I noticed, but we talked about it too, the firefighters who come out. They bring out their ladder trucks, hanging the American flag. This really is a brotherhood, and I know a lot of times you guys have this, joke between the fire department and police departments, but
it's
at
like
a time like
brothers
right,
fight among themselves, but when it comes down to there is that brotherhood, and we appreciate fire being part of that. The police, we try to reciprocate on those rare occasions, unfortunate occasions where firefighters killed in line of duty, to show that same respect to them.
If you're just joining us, we are honoring Colerain Officer Dale Woods here, and as we were watching this ceremony, of course, we heard all of the things that we've been hearing over the last 10 days about him as a police officer serving multiple agencies, first as a firefighter, then as a police officer on the SWAT team, part of the missing persons unit, an investigator, part of the honor guard. Clearly, one of the people who spoke was saying, talking about how he was not just a good person who you made into an officer, but he came on that force as just a great cop, right? But then, Mike, I think what touched both of us and all three of us up here is remembering that this is a family man first. And he had 3 children, Haley, Trinity, and Colin. The 2 daughters are older, and then a son, also leaving behind his girlfriend and other family members. And the chief of police, his statement about Dale.
You're talking about Mark Denny, the Colerain police chief, and we're going to play a little snippet here in a minute when he was speaking directly to those kids. But when you're the chief of police, there are so many things that are not in the job description, and one of them is what we saw today. He was an amazing speaker today. He commanded respect from that audience. People knew when he was talking from the heart. And I think anybody in that Colerain Police Department, when they hear the chief speak today, they know that's a man who I want representing me, and that's a man who I want to work for.
One of the things that you come to realize when you are a chief of a department is you often are the department. You're the public face. How people feel about the department is often based upon their interactions with the members of that department. Well, as the chief, you're the face out front. And that is important that you present the face the way Mark Denny just did.
Let's listen to that soundbite where he talked directly to Officer Woods' 3 children, calling their father a hero.
And being a hero doesn't require that you die in a fiery explosion or that you have some innate skill for carrying a football or a tune, but it does require you be willing to give everything, including your life, for a purpose greater than yourself. And if that doesn't describe your dad, I don't know what does. What happened to your dad Friday was tragic. What happened was unfair. And what happened will alter your lives forever. And there isn't a return to the old normal. But there'll be a new normal. There'll be a new feeling of pride when you hear your father's name. And that's going to come from the speeches and the stories you've been told over the last week and that we'll continue to hear. And when you look around you at this awesome display of respect for what your father stood for.
Gene Ferrara back with us, former UC police chief in law enforcement for 50 years, sadly has gone through at least 10 of these over the years during his career. You just heard from the chief of police there, Colerain Township. We talked a little bit about fire department and military and police. They're the kinds of professions where you put yourself out there and you know that something like this could happen. And we were talking that when if you could hear Dale Woods talk to us right now, he would almost be angry the way it ended, because they're used to going into shootouts, they're used to running into burning buildings, and yet a lot of times we don't pay attention to the motor vehicle, and yet the motor vehicle takes the lives of a third of these officers in many of these incidents.
Yes, on average, for the last 5 years, it's almost 1/3 of the police officers that are killed in the line of duty are related to vehicles. Accidents, either they were driving and they had an accident, or were struck and had someone hit them, as did happen with Dale. And yeah, I think you're probably right. It's such an inglorious way. I mean, you know, there's something about battle, and you expect, and you know, to rise up to the occasion, but to have that happen.
Your guard is down in a situation like that.
Yeah,
you're just out in the rain at an accident scene, and somebody comes along, and you're not prepared for it. And you know, when you're going in, as you told me, when you'd get that call in the middle of the night, your wife would get your gear together, and you'd run out the door, and she'd say, "See you later," and you'd say, "I love you," and you knew you were going into harm's way. In this case, he didn't get a chance to talk with his kids. He didn't get a chance to talk with his wife. He didn't get a chance to talk with his friends. He was out in an accident scene, and he lost his life.
Yes, one of my assignments when I was with Cincinnati was as a training officer at the academy, and I still do that. I do training in the police departments and places around the country, and one of the things that we constantly try to reinforce to officers, and I'm sure the new recruits that are going through the recruit class will hear this over and over, there are no routine runs.
Right.
There is no job that you perform as a police officer or a firefighter or military that doesn't have danger attached to it. Some are more frequent than others, but anything could, and that's the problem, I guess, is that, as you said, Mike, to let your guard down, because this is just something that we do all the time, every day. How many accidents have we made runs to? How many investigations? And then to have that happen, any death is sad.
Right.
But yeah, you're probably right. I think if Dale could say it, this isn't how I wanted that to happen.
Right.
Certainly not how his family wanted him to go at 46 years
Yeah.
old. Another powerful moment was when our township administrator there in Colerain, Jeff Miltz, he said, "It doesn't end here today." Tell his story. Let's listen to that part.
There are many people in this room who know Dale's story better than I do, and I implore you, tell it. Tell it often. Tell the story about that rainy night in January when Dale did what police officers do. When Dale did what firefighters and EMTs do. When Dale did what heroes do every day. When Dale did his job. He helped somebody who needed help. He paid the ultimate price. Friends, I believe in the altruism of public service, but this is not fair. And this hurts. And these last days have been difficult ones. And you shouldn't die for doing your job, even if your job is to be a hero. But I also believe that so long as the work that you have done and the person that you are is still impacting people's lives, so long as your story continues to be told, then you have left a legacy. A legacy you can be proud of. I'm proud of Dale. I'm proud of his legacy. Let's make Dale's legacy our lives.
You were listening there to Jeff Mills, the Colerain Township Administrator. One thing that I noticed, we were trying to be very respectful today, and this was something that Dale's family wanted. They did not want his children shown at this memorial service, so you really did not. You saw all the outlying police agencies, Colerain Township officers, officers from all over Greater Cincinnati, but really not his family, and that was out of respect for his family. From here, just to kind of lay out for you what we're waiting for is there is going to be another procession. You're looking live here. I believe this is right outside of Spring Grove Cemetery. So from the Cintas Center there at Xavier, they're actually going to take a little bit longer route, about 9.5 miles. They're going to take the highway so that they don't have to stop as much. They don't have to disrupt traffic going through the city as much. And then they're going to end here at Spring Grove. At the cemetery, it is then a private service, as you were hearing before. Lieutenant Chris Phillips from Colerain Police was explaining that to the audience there. And so once Officer Wood's body gets to the gravesite there, we will then leave coverage here and give them honor what their wishes and respect the gravesite service. But a lot, Gene, is going to happen there at the burial service. And sadly, I've been to too many of these as a reporter, and I know you have as an officer over the 50 years. Talk to us a little bit. I just think it is so touching when you see a military member, a firefighter, a police officer be buried, the amount of respect and the process that we're going to see, well, we won't see, but you see when you're there personally.
Absolutely.
Talk to us about what's going to happen there.
And most people will say it was buried with full military honors because all of those ceremonies are rooted in military. But as I said in the beginning, those are the three professions where people actually do put their life on the line. But generally, and the order may mix a little bit, but there will be generally the playing of taps, which actually is the lowering of the flag in the evening. I mean, taps is played every day on a military installation when they lower the flag. But at a funeral, it's because we're putting the body in the grave. Mm-hmm. So it's the final. There will be, in most cases, a 21-gun salute, which is an interesting, at least what I've been told and what I've been able to find in research, is that ceremony actually goes back to the naval times, when a ship was coming into a port area, that just as when you shake hands, you're actually showing you do not have a weapon and there's no ill feelings and no harm, no animosity.
Right.
And when they fired the cannon, they were emptying them. So they were no longer able to take offensive action against. So it's a similar thing of showing the respect that we're not, no harm meant. And so that 21-gun salute has been transferred, if you will, onto rifle fire. But that was, when I researched where does the 21-gun salute come from, that's what I found. There will be a folding of the flag in a particular fashion that none of the blue will show, only the red and white stripes. It's a triangular. That will be handed to a family member, the girlfriend, widow, whatever, whoever the closest relative is. And the other thing may happen, and I don't know what the sheriff's going to do, but in many times the sheriff has a helicopter do a flyover. And all of those are just ways of showing respect to the person that died in the line of duty.
Cherie and Gene, anytime there's a special ceremony, God knows we talk about the weather so often on the news, and you don't want the weather to get in the way, but I almost believe that Mother Nature, I hope the family thinks of it this way, Mother Nature knew this was going on, and that snow, as you look at that shot, is such a beautiful, beautiful backdrop, and it makes it such a memorable, it would be memorable to begin with, but a memorable, powerful day. It's just amazing how life sometimes, we think that things get in the way, and in the end, it ends up making it better.
Well, yes, as you're saying, the aesthetics of that, I don't know how you could draw one up better than to have that quiet, serene,
beautiful
view of the cemetery area. The important thing is that, and I know they said it throughout, but what this is all about, there is a death, but the celebration, the ceremony is about the life. That's important, I think, that everybody understand that they went back and reiterated his life That's what all the ceremony's about. And the fact that that life has ended, but it had meaning.
Speaking of his life, Gene, he really was an extraordinary officer. I know you didn't have, you weren't able to work with him personally, but as we have learned over the last 10 days since this accident happened, I know a lot of our reporters knew him, but he was this quiet, just sort of did his job kind of guy, but involved in so many things.
Right. The resume is incredible.
The resume is incredible. We talked with a woman who is blind, who he went in because he was a former firefighter. As he was a police officer last September, he ran into her burning home. Of course, she couldn't see to get out on her own, and she was in tears last week talking with us about, I can't believe, he didn't make it in this car crash, and just how much she appreciated him and how much he truly saved her life that day. I want to go back to an interview that we have here, and this is with the chaplain James Love, and he talks about Officer Wood's commendations. Let's listen in.
In 2002, he received a letter of commendation from the North College Hill on auto theft investigation. 2003, he got a letter of commendation from the Missing Persons from Florida. 2003, a Medal of Valor for a North College Hill structure fire. 2004, Medal of Valor, Colerain Township in a Kmart shooting. 2004, Ohio Fire Marshal gave him the Ohio Fire Services Citizens Award. 2009, the FOP gave him an appreciation award. 2009, he got a Chief Commendation for OVI enforcement. 2010, Chief Commendation for a shooting on Windsong Street. 2013, Letter of Commendation for a homicide investigation in Indiana. Last year, it was on the news, you may remember, he got a life-saving award for a fire involving leading out and taking care of a blind woman. But that's not all, because not only in his life did he receive awards, but in 2019, even in his death, he has the life-saving award for organ donation. I think it is appropriate that we recognize not only who he was, but that he was a man of service. To protect and to serve was something that he took serious.